The first thing Cora Hutchins noticed about the boy was that he never raised his hand. Not because he didn't know. She figured that out within the first week of 7th grade. Marcus L. and Webb knew the answers. He knew them before she'd finished asking the question. But he sat in the third row, second seat from the window, and he watched, and he waited, and when she called on someone else he would write something in his notebook instead, a small, private record of whatever the class had just gotten wrong. She'd stopped calling on him after October. Not because she gave up on him. Because she understood, by then, that calling on Marcus when the class was stuck felt like turning on a light before anyone was ready for it. He was 13 years old, and he was the quietest person in the building, and on the last Friday of the spring semester, in the school gymnasium of Harwell Middle School, with 67 students setting up their STEM fair projects on folding tables that smelled of industrial cleaner, Marcus L. and Webb was the first one to smell something else. He was adjusting the display board above his entry, a hand-wired circuit that mapped airflow patterns through a model duct system, built from copper tubing and a small salvaged fan motor, when the smell reached him. Faint. Low. Sweet in the wrong way, the way things are sweet when they aren't food. He stepped back from his table. He tilted his head slightly, the way he did when he was cataloging something. Then he walked to the end of the gym, past the papier-mâché volcano and the baking soda and vinegar table, and stopped near the east gymnasium door, where the return air grill ran along the baseboard. He crouched and put his nose close to the slats without touching them. He stood up and went to find someone in charge. The person in charge of the gymnasium that afternoon was Vice Principal Derek Aldrin, who was new to Harwell Middle School, having transferred from a district on the other side of the county in January. He was not a bad man. He organized the fire drill logistics carefully, knew every bus route, and had already fixed 2 scheduling problems that had survived 3 administrations. He was also, Cora knew, still learning the school. Still learning who was who. Marcus found him near the gymnasium entrance, reviewing the judges' scoring sheets. Mr. Aldrin. The boy's voice was level. Not quiet from shyness, quiet from precision. There's a gas smell near the east return duct. I think it might be coming from the utility corridor. Aldrin looked up. He looked at Marcus, a slight, serious black boy in a gray sweater, standing with his hands at his sides, not fidgeting, not performing alarm. Cora watched from across the gym, pretending to straighten a display she had already straightened. A gas smell, Aldrin said. Yes, sir. It's faint but it's there. It's pulling through the return air. Aldrin set down his scoring sheets and looked toward the east wall with the expression adults wear when they have decided something is probably nothing. I don't smell anything from here, Marcus. These big spaces get all kinds of odors when the systems are running. Try not to let it distract you from your project. Marcus held still for a moment. Then he nodded once and walked back to his table. Cora let out a slow breath. She told herself it was probably nothing. She told herself Derek Aldrin had been in the building for 5 months and knew the mechanical systems. She told herself the boy was imaginative, that he had built a circuit model of the school's ductwork for a project, that maybe he was pattern matching, seeing what he'd drawn. She told herself all of it and did not entirely believe any of it. For minutes later, a white 8th grader named Connor Marsh walked up to Derek Aldrin and said, "Hey, something smells weird by that door." Aldrin straightened up. "Which door?" "The east one." Aldrin put the scoring sheets down entirely this time. He told Connor to show him, and they walked to the east gymnasium door together, and Aldrin crouched near the return air grill and sniffed, and then stood up and looked uncertain in a way that meant he was no longer certain it was nothing. Cora was already watching Marcus. The boy was at his table. He had seen the whole thing. He was not angry, or if he was, it lived so far below the surface that nothing showed. He simply sat down, opened his science fair project notebook to a page near the back, and began to trace something with his finger. Not writing. Following a line he had already drawn. He looked at it for perhaps 30 seconds. Then he picked up the notebook, tucked it under his arm, and walked, not toward Derek Aldrin, who was now in low conversation with Connor near the east door, but toward the gymnasium side exit, which led to the maintenance hallway. Cora set down the display she was pretending to organize and followed him with her eyes. Augusto Reyes had worked as Harwell's head custodian for 11 years. He had a rolling cart he pushed with one hand and a radio clipped to his belt, and he could diagnose a boiler problem by sound from 2 hallways away. He was also, Cora had observed over 6 years of teaching in this building, one of the few adults who talked to Marcus L. and Webb the way you talk to a person who knows things. She didn't see what happened in the hallway. She would piece it together later, from Reyes and from the work order he filed. The boy had come through the side door with his notebook open to the schematic, set it on Reyes's cart without saying anything dramatic, pointed to the east return duct in the branch that fed the utility corridor, and said, "The smell is stronger at the baseboard than it is at head height. That means it's pulling in low, through the return, not coming down from above. The source is probably in the corridor, near the kitchen supply line." Reyes had leaned over the notebook, then straightened up, then walked 12 feet to the utility corridor door and cracked it open and put his nose to the gap. He said he knew it before the door was fully open. 40 years of working in buildings, he'd smelled it before. He photographed the notebook page on his phone and handed the notebook back to the boy. He told Marcus to go back to the gymnasium and stay calm. Marcus had nodded and gone. She only saw Marcus come back through the side door 2 minutes later, without his notebook, and go quietly back to his table. And then, 40 seconds after that, she heard Reyes's voice on the radio, not loud, but carrying, the way a voice carries when the person speaking it has made a decision and is not reversing it. "Principal's office. I need you on the line right now. East Utility Corridor, the gas company, and I need this building clear." The gymnasium took a few seconds to understand what it was hearing. Then it understood. The evacuation was orderly because Harwell drilled it well. Students pushed back from folding tables, leaving projects where they stood. Teachers moved to the doors. Aldrin was already on his phone, his face doing the thing faces do when the thing that was probably nothing turns out to be something. Within 4 minutes the gym was empty. Within 7 the building was. They stood on the practice field in the afternoon sun, 67 students and their science fair projects abandoned on their tables inside, and Cora found Marcus near the back of the 7th grade cluster, sitting on the grass with his knees up, watching the building with the same calm expression he wore when he was waiting for a class to catch up to him. The other kids around him were restless, checking phones, complaining about leaving their boards inside, speculating in the loud, certain way of 12 and 13-year-olds who have decided they understand a situation. Marcus was not doing any of that. He was watching the building the way you watch a thing you have already thought through, waiting for the physical world to confirm what you already know. She walked over and sat down beside him. "Your notebook," she said. "The one with the ductwork drawing." He looked at her. "That was for the October project," she said. "The airflow mapping." "Yes, ma'am." "You drew the whole building's HVAC system from memory." "From the facilities diagram in the library," he said. "And from walking it. I went during study hall in September. Mr. Reyes let me." She didn't say anything for a moment. On the road in front of the school, the first of 2 gas company vehicles was pulling in. "You went to Mr. Reyes because you knew he'd listen," she said. Marcus pulled a piece of grass from the ground and turned it between his fingers. "I went to Mr. Reyes because he knows the building," he said. The gas company crew entered through the facilities door with their meters. 14 minutes had passed since Marcus had first spoken to Derek Aldrin. The leak was in the East Utility Corridor, a joint in the gas supply line to the kitchen that had been settling for weeks into a slow seep. The crew supervisor said later that the HVAC return system had been pulling it through at low concentration, not dangerous yet, not in the way that gets into the news, but trending. Another couple of hours in an enclosed building with 67 people running small electrical equipment would have changed the question considerably. The location of the leak, exactly where Marcus had said. His hand-drawn schematic, which Reyes had photographed on his phone before passing it to the principal, showed the east return duct, the utility corridor branch, and the kitchen supply line in a diagram that the facilities manager later confirmed was accurate to within 2 feet. 2 feet. From a 13-year-old's memory, a library diagram, and a walk he had taken during study hall in September. Principal Aladil called the staff together the following Monday morning, before first period. She was not a woman who spoke at length when a few words would do. She stood at the front of the library with her hands folded and told them what had happened, in order, without softening any of it, that a student had reported a gas smell at approximately 3:40 on Friday afternoon, that the report had not been acted on, that the same student, rather than arguing, had taken his evidence to a person who he knew would evaluate it on its merits, That Augusto Reyes had done exactly that, and that as a result everyone in the building had gone home safely on Friday and was standing here now. She said Marcus Webb's name twice. Once when she explained what he'd reported. Once when she said what he'd done next. Derek Aldrin sat in the second row. He was not a man who hid from things. Cora watched him and saw someone sitting with the specific stillness of a person who is reconstructing a scene in his memory and arriving, each time, at the same uncomfortable conclusion. He came to school early on Tuesday. He went to Marcus's homeroom before first period and asked to speak with him in the hallway, and he gave the boy a handwritten letter on school stationery, 2 paragraphs, Cora heard later, in which he said plainly that he had not listened the way he should have listened, that the reason he hadn't was not something he was proud of, and that he was sorry. He did not ask Marcus to respond. He just handed him the letter and went back to his own office. Marcus read it once in the hallway, folded it, and put it in his pocket. The school board met 3 weeks later. Item 4 on the agenda was a review of the district's student safety reporting protocols, a review that had been requested, in writing, by Principal Aladil the Monday after the incident. The board voted unanimously to adopt a new standard: any safety report from any student, regardless of the reporting student's age or manner, was to be logged and physically verified within 15 minutes. They called it the Harwell standard, because that was the school where someone had gotten it right. They also, at the same meeting, invited Marcus Webb to stand at the front of the room while the board chair read a commendation into the official record. Marcus stood with his hands at his sides and his chin level, the way he always stood, and when the board chair finished reading he said thank you, which were the only 2 words he spoke, and they were enough. Cora was there. She sat in the 3rd row of the public gallery and watched the boy she had been teaching for 9 months stand in a room full of adults and receive, without any visible surprise, without any performance, without the slightest concession to spectacle, exactly what he had been owed from the beginning. The STEM fair was rescheduled for the following month. Marcus entered the same project, the hand-wired circuit that mapped airflow patterns through a model duct system. He did not add anything to it or change it. It was the same project he had built before anyone knew his name. The judging panel included the same evaluator who had been in the gymnasium the afternoon of the evacuation. Before the competitive scoring began, she announced a special recognition, not a ranked prize, not a category award, but a separate commendation for the application of scientific knowledge to a real problem in real time, with real stakes. She said his name, and the gymnasium, the same folding tables, the same industrial cleaner smell, went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when they are paying attention to something that matters. Marcus walked up to receive it the same way he did everything. Steadily, without hurrying. He shook the evaluator's hand. He looked her in the eye. He did not make a speech. He didn't need to. The building itself had already said everything that needed saying about what it meant when a quiet boy who notices things is finally, properly heard.